It's always useful when playing D&D to have a few tavern maps on hand, so when you inevitably end up there, you can throw something out. Today we made such a map, but we also wanted to do a little bit more. We wanted to create some noteworthy NPCs and give the tavern a little bit of lore, so there's a perfectly good base for any DM to build off when they whip out this tavern as part of their campaign. If you want access to this map, check out the Patreon. If you want to do this stuff live, check out the Twitch. And with that, let's just check out the video. For this tavern, I was aiming for a smaller inner city place. I also wanted to keep the theme of having the 3D stamp in the corner, then having the rest of the map being top down. So we first needed to pick our stimulus building. I don't mind the 2-section one, actually. So I think this 2-section one could be interesting, where it's like this at the back is like the kitchen, or maybe there's some bedrooms back there, and this like front part is more of a tavern. And you know, as I say, if it jumps out to me, it jumps out to me, and we don't need to overthink it. With the tavern picked, I went to work on the blueprint, which I wanted to have at roughly the same 45-degree angle as the incarnate stamp. But this really wasn't working, as it was cutting off too much of the tavern and would mean there'd be too much empty space on the map. What we want to do is we actually want to get like a little blueprint like this. And we're gonna, because we want to make sure that it actually fits on the map. And maybe it's not at such an angle. It was going to be at an angle, but I think we can have it at a very light angle. Not as much as an angle that is demonstrated in our little preview up here. With the base down, I would then rework our preview to make it resemble the vibe we were going for. And as such, I think it could actually be fun to surround this tavern with some other buildings. I think that's actually could be like a more interesting way to place it, because I do want to have this in a city. I want it to feel like, or maybe at least part of a town. I want it to feel a little bit more compact, a little bit more squished in. When making these little previews, I like to add a whole lot of details into the mix, which can help give characterization to the tavern and the location it's in. For this, I figured it could be near some markets. Or maybe we could have like a market, actually. That could be interesting. That could be something different, because I think barrels is going to be like a classic, like storage related items is always going to be like a classic thing to do here. So maybe like a little small market stall could be like a fun thing to place here. Yeah, I don't mind this. I don't mind this. Chuck some barrels here. Interesting. But I do think this is getting kind of the idea across that it's like in the middle of a city and it's much more like bustling and there's a lot going on and everything like that. And it's just kind of like this tavern is just sort of in the center of it and you just sort of, you know, kerflumping your way in. I would also place some barrels and a cart outside the tavern in the little space there, making that the tavern storage, meaning this tavern wouldn't have any of that stuff inside of it. With some progress made, I reminded myself and chat this was going to be a simple tavern with no quest blossoming from it. And then I jumped in on a design style I'd never attempted before. I want to create like a little bit of backstory, 1 paragraph of backstory. And then I want to create like a little bit, like 1 or 2 NPCs, which like might run the tavern, just so like if a DM sort of picks it up and they're like, hey, what's going on here? You know, you can just sort of be like, this is the tavern owner, this is one of the workers. And then like, maybe there's like one interesting NPC, or like you can maybe discuss the group or whatever. So let's start with actually just like putting down some tables. And I think there's something I want to try, which is I want to try making a booth, which I've never done before, and I want to give it a go. I want to give making a booth a red hot go. After placing down some benches, I realized they didn't really work, in large part because they had holes in them, which isn't really how bar booths look. So I ended up flipping to some red train cart seats instead, which looked a lot better, but also changed the nature of the tavern. As leather seats are fancier than wood, this place is probably a little fancier than I had in mind. I mean, do the benches go over the top of the seats? Is that like classic protocol? Yeah, they do, right? So let's actually move this across. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I am liking that. I think we can actually have a couple of these benches. As the walls are also slightly slanted, we needed to make a choice of how the tables would interact with the walls. It was either going to be the tables a bit more pulled out or the tables a bit more pulled in here. I think it being pulled out a bit is a little bit less obvious. Like people are less likely to look here, but the metal being gone is a bit more obvious. So that's the choice we're going to make. And that's great. These are definitely small design choices, but I like thinking about them and trying to do what's best, because over the course of the map, they add up and can make a sizable difference to the verisimilitude of the map. We would then focus on having some decorations on the tables, giving them some coasters and candles. Coasters are more modern, but as we are leaning off the red leather precedent set by the booths, I think coasters fit in a pub like this, in a way they wouldn't in a more wooden ramshackle tavern. Stacks of coasters that people can use when they actually get to the tables. I am liking this. It is a bit micro, but I love doing the micro, and I think for places like this, the micro is going to be super, super important. With these booths set down, we decided to lean on what we had to give this place a little backstory. We kept it simple. It's a small bar in the middle of the city. It's a little more well kept and upmarket than some of the other pubs surrounding it, but it's certainly not the fanciest place around. Simple was not the party line for our first NPC. The fun, weird NPC could be a warforged with a brain in a jar. That's his best friend. Yeah. Absolutely. Maybe we could do something like this. This person was made into a warforged, but was actually a person at one point. They're almost like an android warforged. And then when they were made into a warforged, they were given a new personality and a new sense of self. And their brain is actually the old version of themselves that they are like disconnected from and feel like is an entirely different entity, but they're like, man, do we get on well? We have that rapport, we have that history, we go way back. And I think that could be fun, whether like the brain in the jar is sort of their own self that they have a great relationship with, and maybe even a psychic connection. When it came to answering questions like why they became a warforged, we tried to veer away from anything too overplayed, but also anything too grandiose. This character's motivations would be pretty grounded. Why has they become warforged? I think there's the Darth Vader route, where it's like, they got fucked up and it was the only way to hell, making like them a robot. Or it could be like the cyberpunk route, where it's like, cyberkinetics in my blood, in my body makes me a better person. And I think both of those are valid, but I kind of want to do a third lower key one, where they did it more for funsies. Maybe it could be like a mad scientist magic user who wanted to do the experimentation of seeing if they could turn somebody into a warforged, like a transmutation wizard who's seeing if they can turn like human flesh into metal. And they like signed up Nikki for like gave Nikki a really big sum of money or something like that, or promised them glory. Instead of giving them glory, we continued the characterization at that ground level. He did it for a really good sandwich. I like that. I like that as the thing. I like that as the impetus of like what he was given by the wizard. The wizard is like, I will make you really good sandwiches. And they were like, fuck yeah, sounds good. I love that. That's the kind of low-key thing I want. And with this, we had a funky NPC who exists in the bar just in case the party asks if there's any notable figures hanging around, who they want to get into an unnecessarily long and pretty dumb conversation with, parsing every part of their personality and past. With Nikki and Nicholas making themselves at home in one of the booths, we bounced over to the kitchen, and I wanted to make this a smaller little place. A single stove, only a couple benches, and no wall dividing in between the kitchen and the patrons, allowing people to see the food cooking process, creating a greater sense of intimacy between the tavern and the customers. I also wanted to have the cutlery and plates available to be grabbed both by the patrons and the chef. Yeah, that's our little kitchen area, and it's a little bit open. You can see the plates are here. I like that. I think that's fun. Moving on to the bar, I similarly didn't want to go too crazy, whipping out some tricks I had learned from the last tavern I made. I placed some bottles and mugs at the back of the bar, then placed some levers down to emulate bar taps, then a rug to be a barman. Before moving on, I made some small changes to bring some life and logic to the ordering process. Maybe we can have like the taps here, for example, and this is, maybe the taps go here. I'm trying to visually map this a bit, like, so it makes sense, is what I mean. So, and then the beer mat can go there. No, the beer mat can go here because that's where they pass it to people. Pass the drinks. So people come and order here, and then people sit here. I think that makes sense. I'm trying to think what real bars are like. With the kitchen bar area complete, it was then time for the seating area. I want to put some circular tables in because I want to have a little bit more dimensionality in the sense that it's like, you know, square, square, right? All of this stuff is square. And I think having some like circle tables here is going to make it have a little bit more. It's just going to feel a bit more like angled, and it's going to feel like there's more going on to this place than just having these like very specific rectangles everywhere and it being very like coordinated. And, you know, that can work if the place narratively is more rigid or more structured, but I don't think this place is. I think it's nice. I think it's, you know, well kept, but I don't think it has that rigidity to it. So having some of those circularness can just sort of subtly reinforce the, you know, the freedom and the sort of, I don't know, just gets away from rigidity, whatever the opposite of rigidity is. We placed down some bigger communal tables, then a couple smaller, more intimate tables near the booths, diversifying the furniture so it's not simply the exact same table and chair design throughout the tavern, giving one table in the bar stools instead of chairs as an extension of this. This left us with one empty space to fill. I think we could have something here, and we could have a table. Could have a table, keep it simple, right? It doesn't need to be like, ooh, wickety wackety whoa. But what could go here that's a little bit mo? And maybe this is when we create our like tavern worker NPC. Because let's actually look through the decorations and let's see if we can find something that's sort of like interesting to be that like differentiation in that corner. Because another table, just another table. It says nothing, it gives no characterization to the place. But something that's a little bit different and a little bit unique is going to be that characterization. I said we could do the NPC first, but it might actually be more interesting to do this first and then use whatever that little bit of zhuzh is to figure out maybe something like a weapons rack. But we can use that zhuzh to figure out what the NPC is and who they're like. A weapons rack is exactly what we went with. To justify the weapons rack, I thought maybe it's because they ask everyone to leave their weapons at the door, but this didn't feel like the right place to have that narrative, so we kept thinking. Maybe there could be a weapons rack near the door because like sometimes like monsters will spawn or something like that. It's like a defensive thing of like, in case people in the tavern, like something happens, we need to grab a weapon and they're used for defense. So maybe it's like if the town gets attacked or like monsters spawn or something like this, there's a bunch of weapons at the front for the people in the tavern to grab a weapon and defend. I like that as an idea. So let's do that. After giving the tavern a little bit more backstory related to these occasional attacks, we really only had the tavern related NPC to go. The tavern owner should only use a shovel as a weapon and his nickname is Sir Wreck Your Shit. Yeah. Obviously, that is exactly what we're going to do. So let's grab the shovel. Is that, what? That's actually not a shovel. That cannot be. That cannot be the case. There has to be a shovel. Because I wanted to chuck the shovel on the map right away. But absolutely, there's So Wreck Your Shit. And I think So Wreck Your Shit can be... Oh, it's under tools. I was like, there is 100% a shovel here. It's going to be sideways, which is a little annoying. I'd prefer if it was like standing up. As the shovel was being laid down flat, it didn't really fit on the map, so we put a rack down and laid the shovel on top. So Sir Wreck Your Shit would have easy access in case anything ever goes down. With most of the tavern complete, we went through, added some lights, some food, some extra coasters and glasses. All to give this place the feeling that it's busy and people are currently up inside it, even if there are no actual characters on the map, rather than having no food or drinks on the map and having it feel empty apart from the party. I also purposefully left the middle booth empty so the party could sit themselves there and feel like they are a part of the mix. With the map complete, we just had to give Sir Wreck Your Shit a little backstory. So I think their backstory can be like they were farming the food and they had this like weird vengeance and like desire that like, I don't get to see the final product of that food. And they wanted to become like a chef so they could see like the food that they were getting from the ground, they could actually like create and give to people and see the happiness on people's faces when they ate it. That's going to be their inspiration. That's going to be their backstory. We'll write that out. And that's the Desire Drink Dive complete. A small inner city tavern with a little over half a page of backstory. The backstory is short, but has a lot of interesting elements to play with. The tavern gets attacked occasionally and the patrons have to step up and defend it. The manager is a glory hunter and became the tavern's chef because they felt like their food harvesting was going unappreciated and they wanted to get actual credit for their work. One of the customers is an orc warforged who is turned by a mad transmutation wizard, all for a really good sandwich. Overall, I'm really happy with how this map turned out. And if you want to join us on the map making enterprise, then check us out on the Twitch. If you want access to this map or any map I make, then check out the Patreon, and massive thank you to everyone who already has. And lastly, subscribe to the channel for weekly D&D content just like this. And with that, we're done so. Thank you for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye.